That heat index is going to be such an issue for us essentially as we go through the day tomorrow. So that is the main reason as to why we issued the 19 first alert weather day. Yes, it's summertime. Yes, we get a lot of this heat moving through. But when you're talking about heat index values or how that temperature feels to your body, getting into those triple digits, that becomes a lot more taxing on us, especially if we are spending any of that time outside. And it's easier for things like heat exhaustion or any other type of heat illness to settle in, which is why we're giving you that first alert. You'll notice it's not necessarily for everybody. Most of our counties are included with the exception of our far eastern and far southern counties. Really the only reason for that distinction of why some counties are included versus not is the farther west you go, the higher that heat index is going to climb. It's still going to be toasty all across northeast Ohio, so even in places like New Philadelphia, just expect that as we go through the day tomorrow. And honestly today, you see all that sunshine out there, it's going to really help to warm up that temperature through the rest of this morning and especially as we get into the early part of the afternoon. Temperatures right now sitting upper 60s to about lower 70s. It was very comfortable earlier this morning. It is still going to remain that way for at least the next couple of hours before we really start to build in more of that heat and humidity. And you can see some of those hints just off to our west. No threat for rain today. That's the good news for us. Unfortunately, we also don't have much of a south wind out there, so it is going to feel a little stickier as we continue on through the rest of this afternoon. Temperatures through the morning warming into the lower 80s, and then we're back mid to upper 80s as we go through the course of the later part of today. We'll walk you through all the details with the heat and humidity on the way for tomorrow, plus talk about a storm chance for the weekend coming up in just a few. Look though from Edgewater Beach, and you may notice one thing probably out of anything is how deep blue that sky still is. That's because the humidity values are still relatively lower right now. That will change over the course of today, but if you're headed out to some of our area beaches, it's a pretty nice forecast, very summer-like. Temperatures sitting anywhere from about the mid 80s to the upper 80s. Just kind of depends on where you're at. Put-in-Bay, you may get lucky. Temperatures only topping out into the lower 80s, thanks to being surrounded by a little bit more of that cooler water. But winds are going to be very light out of the southeast. And what that eventually does is pump in that moisture as well as a little bit more of the heat over the course of the next, say, 24 hours or so. That's why we're monitoring this 19 first alert weather day for tomorrow, because as that heat continues to climb, it's going to push that heat index value likely near that triple digit point as we go through tomorrow afternoon. One of the main reasons as to why that heat advisory was issued. For tomorrow, it's many of our counties. It will begin at 11 a.m. So that's really when you're going to start to notice that kind of stuffy heat starting to work back in, and it will last through 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. That's when we expect the worst of the heat and the humidity to be sitting across our area, and you'll really see that big jump on your muggy meter. And once we basically build in this humidity, it's going to be really hard to clear it out of here until we get a bigger system coming through this weekend and a front that can kind of push in some slightly drier air. So enjoy what's left of this nice, more comfortable air that we have around through the day today. Temperatures this afternoon will be back mid to upper 80s across the board. By tomorrow afternoon, you see how a lot more of us are back low to middle 90s. When you factor in that heat index, it's going to make that temperature feel that much warmer. By 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're already feeling like we're into the lower 90s. And then as we get through the course of tomorrow afternoon, at least the upper 90s, if not the lower triple digits. And it's going to take some time for that heat to slowly escape as we go through the second part of tomorrow. Now, once we get into tomorrow evening, earlier I showed you some rain that was out towards Chicago. That system finally starts to work a little closer to us. I still don't think rain's going to be a huge issue through tomorrow evening, but if you're near the lakeshore, you may notice some of those clouds gaining a little bit more height in the atmosphere. What we will likely notice is once we get into Friday, a more better opportunity to see some of those widely scattered showers mixing in. So finally our atmosphere making good use of some of that moisture that we have in place, and that's going to be a rain chance that we likely hold on to through the remainder of the weekend. We'll piece it all together in your 7-day forecast coming up.